Minecraft 26.2 is the Chaos Cubed drop introducing the Sulfur Cube mob, the Sulfur and Cinnabar block sets, and the Sulfur Cave biome, geysers, and more. My name is slicedlime, and this is the most comprehensive guide around to all the news in this version. Let's go. The Sulfur Cube is a new passive mob that spawns in Sulfur Caves like a hostile mob. That is, it belongs to the hostile mob's mob cap and competes with hostile mobs for spawning space, and it despawns when no player is near. They don't actually behave as a hostile mob though, and will never attack players or other mobs. They have 8 health, which is 4 hearts, and are slime-like in that they move by jumping around and split into 2 small mobs when killed. They have no loot drops. Those small mobs act like babies in that they grow up over time and can be tempted by and fed slime balls, which reduces their growing time. The large mobs have an interaction with players. When interacting with them while holding a supported block, the Sulfur Cube will absorb that block, which turns off its normal mob AI and turns it into a physics object of sorts. You can think of it more like a ball than a mob. The physics properties of that ball depends on the block inside according to one of 12 different archetypes, which we'll walk through in a little bit. When a Sulfur Cube has absorbed the block, it becomes invulnerable to many types of damage, but can still take damage from some things, notably fire damage, cramming, and damage from the boss mobs. If it is killed while it has a block inside, it will drop that block. Interacting with a Sulfur Cube that has a block inside while holding another supported block will cause it to swap blocks with the old one popping out. And the old one can also be popped out to reset the mob by interacting with shears. When a large Sulfur Cube is empty, it can be tempted by holding a supported block type. There are 2 other ways a Sulfur Cube can absorb a block. If a large, empty Sulfur Cube is near an item entity with a supported block, it can vacuum that block up and absorb it. Another possibility is for dispensers to place blocks into Sulfur Cubes or remove them with shears. And a final interaction. A large Sulfur Cube can be picked up and placed back down using a bucket. This works on both empty cubes and ones with blocks inside, but only on the large ones. Dispensers can also place down Sulfur Cubes from buckets, but cannot pick them up. Sulfur Cubes get picked up by minecarts, but not by boats. How you hit a Sulfur Cube determines how it reacts, together with its archetype. Both the angle between you and the Sulfur Cube, the power of the hit, and where on the Sulfur Cube you hit it matters. The knockback enchantment also increases the bounce of the cube. Each archetype also has unique sounds for being pushed and punched. So what about those archetypes? The regular archetype is applied when a Sulfur Cube absorbs many dirt-like blocks, clay, mud, and concrete powder. This gives middle-of-the-road properties for speed, bounciness, and ground friction with low air drag, and it also floats in water. The bouncy archetype is applied when a Sulfur Cube absorbs many log or plank-like blocks and applies fast speed, high bounciness, medium ground friction, and low air drag. It also floats. There's also a slow bouncy archetype which has slow speed, high bounciness, medium friction, and medium air drag, and this one sinks. This is used for all kinds of stone, concrete, brick, and ore blocks. The light archetype is applied when a Sulfur Cube absorbs a wool block and makes it slow with high bounciness, medium ground friction, and high air drag. This one also floats. The slow flat archetype is applied when a Sulfur Cube absorbs many metal blocks. It applies slow speed, low bounciness, and medium ground friction and air drag. The fast flat archetype is similar but with faster speed and lower air drag and is applied when a Sulfur Cube absorbs many organic blocks. The slow sliding archetype is triggered by shroom-like blocks and sets slow speed, no bounciness at all, low ground friction, and low air drag. The fast sliding archetype is from packed and blue ice as well as snow blocks and is the same but with faster speed. The high resistance archetype is applied when a Sulfur Cube absorbs a soul sand or soul soil block, making them very slow and with high friction, low air drag, and bounciness. The sticky archetype is applied when a Sulfur Cube absorbs a honeycomb and works like the bouncy archetype but with very high ground friction and no bounce at all to simulate the cube sticking to the ground. When a sulfur cube absorbs a magma block, it becomes hot, with the same physics properties as the regular archetype, but with the additional feature that it also hurts entities that it comes in contact with, as if that entity had stepped on a magma block, but with a unique death message. Player died because not just the floor is lava. And finally, the explosive archetype is used when the cube absorbs a TNT block. The physics properties of the explosive archetype are similar to the regular archetype, but with a slightly higher air drag. Absorbed TNT can prime from the cube interacting with redstone power, nearby explosions, and being set on fire, including using a flint and steel, which also works from a dispenser. The fuse time of a primed TNT cube is 6 seconds compared to the 4 seconds of TNT in block form. If the cube is primed by an explosion, the fuse time is randomized between 0.75 and 3 seconds. Once an absorbed TNT block has been primed, you can no longer pick up the sulfur cube with a bucket, replace the block inside it, or shear the block, and the cube cannot be damaged at all. When it explodes, it does not spawn small sulfur cubes. Of course, the sulfur cube also comes with its own spawn egg. Let's move on to new blocks and items. This version introduces 2 new block sets, Sulfur and Cinnabar. Both have polished versions and brick versions, and slab, stair, and wall versions of all of those. Both also have a chiseled block version, with the chiseled Cinnabar sporting a spider pattern, and the chiseled Sulfur showing a sulfur cube pattern. Both of these materials are stone-like and can be processed on a stone cutter. Another new block type is the Potent Sulfur. In addition to being found in sulfur pools, it can be crafted by placing sulfur in a 3x3 pattern. When a potent sulfur block is placed in water with water sources up to 4 blocks above it, it will produce bubbles that rise up and generate a cloud of nauseating gas on the surface. That cloud spreads with a maximum radius of 3 blocks. When an entity enters that cloud, they get the nausea effect, which currently only has an actual effect on players. When you place one above a magma block and under up to 4 blocks of water, it will turn into a geyser that will erupt at random intervals. When a geyser erupts, it shoots a plume of water particles upwards and sends anything above it flying. The height of the plume and how high you get launched depends on the number of water blocks above the potent sulfur blocks, with the total height being about 7 blocks above the potent sulfur block for each block of water. Geysers only erupt through non-collidable blocks, so for instance they will pass through scaffolding but not copper grates. The timing of geysers is quite complicated. To begin with, each block has a saved timer randomly selected between 1 and 2 seconds for duration and between 15 and 30 seconds for the time between eruptions. These values are randomly chosen depending on the position of the block in the world. The time then further depends on how many water blocks are above the potent sulfur block, with 10 seconds added to the dormant time for each additional block that is present past the first one. And the time it erupts is then also lengthened by 1 second for every such water block. So with 4 water blocks above, 3 seconds are added to the eruption time and 30 seconds to the dormant time. Geysers can also be activated by a lava source instead of a magma underneath the potent sulfur block. With lava underneath the geyser, it erupts continuously instead of randomly, and it has a more muted sound than for magma. There are also sulfur spikes. They are a new block type much like dripstone that can form both stalactites from the ceiling and stalagmites on the floor. Just like dripstone, they also extend when placed together and merge when the tips of a stalagmite and a stalactite meet, except if you hold shift when placing them. Also, just like pointed dripstone, them falling on you hurt, and I can't believe it's not drip sulfur can be dislodged by throwing a trident. But one difference is that falling onto them does not hurt more. Other than impaling your friends or foes, they can also be used in a 2x2 pattern to craft a sulfur block. They can now sometimes be sold by wandering traders, who sell up to 5 trades of 2 sulfur spikes for 1 emerald. Related to all of this is the new biome, the Sulfur Caves. They are a new cave biome that generates underground at various heights, but less likely under oceans and inside hills and mountains. Similar to the azalea tree that generates above lush caves, sulfur springs can generate above sulfur caves. They come in 4 different sizes and generate with a trail of sulfur blocks leading down to the cave biome. The sulfur caves generate with bands of sulfur and cinnabar, and with sulfur pools that can also contain potent sulfur. And there are stalactites and stalagmites of sulfur spikes. The water color is turquoise in sulfur caves. Grass has a muted yellowish look. If you can see it, the sky is blue, but the fog has a sickly green color. The regular hostile mobs spawn in sulfur caves with one exception. Instead of spiders, sulfur caves spawn cave spiders. They also spawn the new sulfur cubes. There are also rare cases where sulfur caves are exposed to the surface, and when that happens, the game will generate them fully with all their features. There's also a new advancement in this version. For making a sulfur cube absorb a TNT block. Visiting a sulfur cave is now also required for gaining the adventuring time advancement. Some other gameplay changes in this version. The way entities bounce on slime blocks and beds has been tweaked in this version, which means you may note slight differences. Beds are now slightly bouncier to match the bounciness of Bedrock beds. That is, beds on Bedrock Edition, not beds made of bedrock. You get it. Tripwire above a player's head no longer triggers twice when jumping. And switching the primary beacon effect no longer lets you get multiple beacon effects for free. There are also mob news. Piglins can now spawn properly on peaceful difficulty in the biomes they spawn in, not only in Bastion Remnants. Hoglins now no longer spawn in peaceful mode at all. The riding positions, eye heights, and hitboxes of various mobs have been tweaked, including almost all the baby mobs being tweaked along with adult bees. The texture of a Gurgle's right arm is now fixed. The color of the eyes of a sleeping baby snow fox is now the same as that of the adults. Dolphins now dismount minecarts when passing over activator rails. And some villager fixes as well. Zombie villagers no longer change biomes when cured. And the discount of Fletchers is now once again applied to the emerald cost rather than the arrow cost for tipped arrows. The game now has a friends list. This is the first version of the system, so expect some initial problems and future developments. The friends list is both accessible from the pause menu and from a new button in the main menu. When you get a friends request, the button will also show a badge showcasing that for up to 5 requests. Any more than that are shown as an indicator for more. The very first time you see the friends list button, you'll also see a prompt asking if you want friends. There's also a keybind for opening the friends list in-game, which defaults to O. There are 2 tabs in the friends list, one for your actual friends and one for your friend wannabes, as well as for any outgoing friend requests. When an update happens to your friends list in-game, that will also show as a toast. This applies for friends requests being sent, received, or accepted. Friends updates can happen every minute while the pause menu or friends list are open, or once every 5 minutes otherwise. Each friend in your list also shows their presence, offline, online, or showing what kind of world they're playing in. There's a new section in the online options that manages your friends' settings. This also includes how much presence you want to share with your friends. Either full for the full information, limited, which limits your information to online and offline, or hidden, which makes you show as always offline. Here you can also set whether you want to accept friend requests from others. There's also a related change. If you have your communication settings set to friends only in your Xbox account settings, you will now only see messages from your friends. This version is the first that supports rendering the game using the Vulkan rendering API. This is controlled by a new option called Graphics API, which has 3 settings: Default, Prefer Vulkan, or Prefer OpenGL. Vulkan is newer than OpenGL, and support for it is new, so may introduce problems, but it might also provide better performance. To see which rendering backend is actually used, you can switch on the System Specs F3 section. The somewhat neglected touchscreen mode has now been fully removed. The Open to LAN screen has changed. The options on it for game mode and commands now only apply to other players. Another difference is that you can now also close the world back down if you no longer want your friends to grief your builds. There are also new options in the World Options screen to replace the Open to LAN functionality, controlling the player's own game mode and allow command setting. These buttons are no longer available in a hardcore world, so there's no longer a sneaky way to change a hardcore world into accepting commands after you die. Cheater. Another change is when you die in a hardcore world, the game will no longer set the spectators generate chunks game rule to false. This also applies to old worlds that had that setting, so you can now properly roam those worlds again in spectator mode. And there's support for 5 new languages in the game: Swiss French, Chuvash, Gallo, Uzbek, and Voro. Let's talk user interface. The game's credits have been updated. The main menu background panorama has been changed and now shows a sulfur cave. There are also 2 new splash texts, now on Vulkan 1.2. And music by Fingerspit. And that's because there is a new music disc in this version, Bounce by Fingerspit. It can be found in chest minecarts in abandoned mineshafts through Sulfur Caves and has a comparator output of 8 when played. There are also 5 new background music tracks by Fingerspit. Shores. Memories. Nightly. Home. And ebb. This version also updates the picky chicken's hurt and death sounds. And the sounds for Nautilus jetting and recovering have been updated. And that's it for this version. Thank you for watching. If the Sulfur Cube absorbs a like button, it becomes irresistible to clicking and absolutely bounces all over the YouTube algorithm. Just so you know. My name is slicedlime, and I'll see you next time.